Well, welcome to another edition of Traditional Martial Arts Podcasting. Really, this is the first official one because the first one was kind of like an introduction of my background, where I come from, what I do, and then my attempts to create something that I hope will be of value to the martial arts community. I have a lot of friends and followers in my 50-year career, and so I thought it'd be interesting if I could put together something that kind of falls in line mainly with traditional martial arts from Japan, from Okinawa, even from Korea, things that are original, things that are first generation, rather than the things the second, third, fourth, or fifth generation eclectic martial arts. So I wanted to stick with something that is more orthodox. And so I'm hoping that it will take off and that people will find value. And in order to do that, I've got to find quality people that are authentic, that are traditional, and that add some value to the podcast. And I'm very proud to say that the first official guest of our podcast will be someone that has a lot of history with me and that we go way back. And I want to introduce Kyoshi Angel Lemus to our family of podcasts. He's the first one. So welcome to our first one, Kyoshi.
It's a pleasure to be here, especially for your first podcast. So, like you said, we have some history together and had some really great moments. But this is a pleasure for me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. And a lot of people are thinking, well, what history can Kyoshi have with Hanshi Marquez? He's not a Goju stylist, but we do have history. And I'm thought when you give your resume, I'd like you to touch a little bit upon what we've done in the past and how we became really close through this incredible publication that I was proudly part of in the inception in 1996. And so, but I'll let Kyoshi touch upon those things also. But I would like to say that Kyoshi is the sole proprietor now. At one time, he had a partnership with Bugeisha, which is widely known. But a lot of people may not know that Kyoshi, based on his title, is also a traditional martial arts instructor. And he has a very wide range of experience. He's been around just like I have. And we train a lot. We train with a lot of people in our career. So if I could pass the mic on to Kyoshi to kind of give us a little resume, if you will.
Well, I started in judo when I was around 11 years old. My mom dragged me to the judo class in my elementary school. I was a very shy kid, very submissive, but she dragged me into the judo class. And the moment I set foot on it, I fell in love with it because I found what used to be weaknesses became my strengths. You know, my the lower body, how I'm shaped, is very heavy in the bottom, large thighs, big feet. So the judo became quite natural because it was very difficult to throw me, and very easy for me to throw the other younger kids. So I practiced judo and I competed in Florida and a lot of regional tournaments. And around 17 years old, I began to study Goju-ryu karate with Manny Saavedra sensei still in Miami, Florida. And then I did that from like the late 70s to like 1984. I switched over to Shorinjiryu with Tim Rogers in Miami. And I've been doing that style originally from the Seibukan Dojo in Okinawa, Shorinjiryu Kyan style. And I still practice it today. But I still have very fond feelings for Goju-ryu, and I still practice a few of those katas. And then during that time, I practiced pretty much a little bit of Kobudo here and there. But when I met Marquez Sensei, I started to train Matayoshi style, and that was our connection. So I would drive about an hour and a half each way from my work to his dojo in Southern California. And that became our connection. During that time, I was beginning to put together Bugeisha Magazine, and our very first issue, we needed to have a cover subject. And then it became this person here, Isa Sensei, which Hanshi was working with him. So Hanshi came to my house and we put on the tape recorder, and about 2 hours later, we had the whole article laid out, and that became the famous first issue of Bugeisha.
And I'm very proud to say that that took place. And if you read the article, and I hope everyone will look for the collector's edition that has all the articles before Bugeisha was put to sleep for a while. And in the article, they'll read about my trip to Okinawa, and when I returned from Okinawa and meeting Soke Isa, is where you put the seed that I should write an article on that. And not being well versed in the writing area, I knew that Sensei Lemus would be a great vehicle. Plus, he had the magazine, and to give Sensei some credit, he basically put my words into pen, and that's how the article. So it was a collaboration, really, between Kyoshi and myself, and I'm very proud of that article, and hope that I can follow up the article, as we discussed before, with a article number 2. As soon as they open Japan, I intend to fly back to Okinawa and meet with Sensei Isa and write the second one for you. But I wanted to ask you, a lot of the times as martial artists, we have a lot of influence on our students. And you have a wide range of experience, not only in Judo and Shorinjiryu and Kobudo, from different factors. And the big push right now, in fact, I just had a meeting with the regional director for the national office on competition. And I've got my own opinions about how competition should fit in a dojo, how important it is. But I do a lot of competition with children with disabilities, because that's what I focus on. But I'd like to know from your perspective how you view competition, and does it have a place in the dojo? And if it does, then at what stage should someone be exposed to it? And how do you separate the traditional Shorinjiryu that you study, as I study Goju-ryu, and competition, knowing that there has to be a segue from one to the other?
Well, there certainly can be an overlap, but they're two completely separate things, because when you train for competition, you're doing the kata in the way that it's become the established look of the kata. If you don't do it the way that the international judging competition looks at it, you may be bypassed because you don't look the right way. But the right way for competition really doesn't really have anything to do with the applications and the combative aspects. So it's become sort of like the Olympics, which you get judged by the performance, not by what's happening inside and what it truly represents. But that's okay. I mean, I competed extensively for years when I was much younger, but I had always a great interest in more in the applications. The only reason I competed is because during that time it was sort of like the thing to do. The teachers and the style that I was associated with, it was the thing everybody did in the late 70s, in the early 80s. It was competition every weekend. But I always felt like, okay, that's one thing that I do is sort of fun and interesting and strokes your ego a little bit if you win, but it wasn't my interest, because when I did judo, you can't pretend to throw somebody and get a point in judo like you can in the striking arts like karate in competition, where you can't really use it for real, because then people will be going to the hospital every day. So it's more of a presentation of, well, I show you that I could have hit him and then you get a point. And we've all talked about this, but my interest was, because I did judo, you either throw it, you throw the person, you choke them out, you put it in an armbar, and they give up, or you slam them down. So it was really, you have to perform. So that really made a big difference for me. And I initially thought that, hey, I'm going to study karate now. So I knew judo, and I thought karate would be the same. And it was like, it's not really the same, because the sparring aspects of it are a lot of fun and it's great exercise, but it's not really doing the thing. So I think for me, it's like, I don't teach any sports karate anymore. I used to years ago. But I think that if you had to do that, you either would have to have two classes, but it's very hard to mix them together.
Right.
Because the training is different, the distancing is different, the techniques are completely opposite. So it can be done, but it's a juggling act.
Right. You know that piece that you said, the difference between judo and the application of judo, and even the sport of judo, are very closely linked because you either throw, pin, or choke, or you don't, which is the same thing you do in the dojo. You either throw, pin, or choke, or you don't. You're either the choker or you're the chokee, right? So judo competition is a lot more closer to the original intent of judo than in karate. So that being said, then the thing that's missing, and you said people would be going to the hospital, joints would be snapped, people would be knocked out. I interpret that as saying the essence of the katas and even the kumite has been stripped out for obvious reasons, liability and safety. How important is, let's use a term that is widely used now, bunkai? How important is bunkai in the development of the martial artists in our world, in the traditional world?
I mean, I think it's as important as the reason why you study. Without bunkai, it would be a soldier going into the military, and you're taught at the beginning to strip your rifle, respect it, practice dry firing, and then they send you to war, but they didn't give you bullets, and you never knew if you could hit the mark. It's almost like stripping the claws and teeth out of a tiger. It can no longer do its function. So practicing kata without bunkai, there's a huge component missing. But it doesn't mean that it has to be like that for everybody. For example, I have some elderly people in my dojo, they're not interested in the self-defense. They like the kata. They do a little bit of knowing self-defense, but they're not hardcore. And, it's a gray area. Some people can come to the dojo. They're not interested in that, and that's fine. But for the most part, people that are interested in the self-defense aspects and finding out why is the movement in the kata like this, then they're gonna pursue it. But for the most part, that's how I teach. I like to know what's going on, and then you explore the possibilities, and then what do the movements mean? And then there's many different levels of the study of bunkai, because there's meridian points, knockouts, there's breaks, there's throws, there's tears, there's all kinds of different aspects to it. And that becomes a lifelong learning challenge.
Absolutely. And I agree with you completely. The way we used to train back in the old days, with myself in Okinawa and in Japan, where the emphasis was placed on a lot of the orthodox training, the hardcore, especially in Goju, all the chishis and the sanchin, and the body conditioning, and the bunkais, and the striking was very harsh. And you have to make decisions, as I'm sure you've gone through it, as many traditional has, that when you have a person who comes into the dojo who's in their 60s, and they're looking for something of a therapeutic application of what we do, or if they're young, they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're not going to be studying bunkai. They want the competition aspect. So I've learned, as I'm sure you have, that a teacher really has to be eclectic in our society as compared to Okinawa, Japan, and all the traditional countries, where basically the training is basically the same as it was 50 years ago. Yeah, you have competition now, but for the most part, training is basically the same. We're in our country with sports medicine and all the things on nutrition and cross-training. We have to be a magic person to know a little bit of everything, because everyone who walks through the door says, I want A, and I want B, and I want C. And sometimes bunkai, who I think we agree is the essence of what we study, and that's handed down from generations to generation. A lot of people say, I'm not really interested in what you call bunkai. So I agree with you completely. As a teacher, where do you put your emphasis? Taking the wide range of needs of students, but where is your center as a teacher?
uh, it depends on the level of your class. If you have a bunch of beginners or intermediate people, you have to focus on basics and kihon, because that's what elevates the repetition, so that the movements are, people have to have good balance, good posture, a good foundation onto the dojo floor. It depends. For a while in Los Angeles, before I moved to Hawaii, I was fortunate that all my students were black and brown belts. So I had a very advanced class. So we spent very little time on kihon and basics, because everybody did a little bit of that on their own. So we had the opportunity to really work on applications. So sometimes we would take a piece of a kata, and that night we just worked for 2 hours on one application and just looked at every aspects and different things. So it was on a much higher level, because we had a lot of fun with that, because that was the level of students that you had.
Right.
If I had white belts and green belts, I would have to separate the class, because they're not going to follow along, because they don't have the understanding skills, and more importantly, the control, and making sure that they are of good moral fiber, that they're not going to, accidentally or even purposely hurt a partner. Because I've had people that I had to kick out because they had no control, and they just like went in and tore somebody's shoulder out, and it's like, I can't have you in the class. Well, why did you do that? Well, whatever.
I thought I was the only one. I guess I'm not.
No, so a lot of times you have to measure the student, and you choose, I'm not going to teach this guy this technique because I know that, he doesn't have control, or I suspect his intentions. But normally, if I think I have somebody who has a malicious intent, they're not going to last long in my dojo. I don't care for that. I don't need to be policing somebody's moral character. If you have it, you're welcome. If you don't, I'm not going to risk you hurting one of my other students. So that becomes another component of how you have to judge who you teach what, and how your class will run, depending on all those different levels.
Well, Sensei, I agree with you completely. And one of my students said, "How many people have you actually kicked out of the dojo?" That was a question to me. And I said, "Nobody." You know what happens? The training kicks them out. The training weeds out everyone who is here for the wrong reason. And the ones who have the correct intent, the heat training that you also experience, it's just an added bonus. But to the individual that doesn't want really training, the training itself weeds people out. And I think that's if you have the right type of training. Now, if you don't have the right type of training, then you have the mixture of all the personalities out there, and you will have those bad apples that if you don't weed them out purposely, then eventually they get up in rank and, oh my God, I got a black belt with the wrong attitude. And I've seen that in many other dojos, unfortunately. But Sensei, I want to segue into Bugeisha. Okay, so I want to give you some time to talk to me about a magazine that really kind of put me on the map internationally with that article.
Well, Bugeisha started as a small idea that grew. In 1994, I knew Walter Daly, who passed away a couple of years ago. He was a student of Zenryu Shimabukuro, and then him and his student Brian Morgan opened up a company called Chemco, Kobudo Equipment Manufacturing Company, and they were making weapons.
And I bought many of those weapons.
Yep, I think we all did. Yep. So me being a graphic designer, I offered Walter, hey, I'll do a little flyer for your company so you can put it here and there, or a brochure. And then that grew into a bigger idea. Why don't we do a newsletter? And then that grew into a full-blown magazine. So when it was all done, we came up with the idea of Bugeisha, and Bugeisha was born. Of course, we used Soka Isa and your amazing trip to Okinawa, where you literally found him by accident without even looking for him, and that was just a fascinating story. And then it lasted for 2 years, because the problem was with martial arts, even now, is there's very little advertising, and especially now that everything's online, it's hard to make a magazine survive. we've seen magazines like Black Belt, they used to be 100 pages. Now maybe they're like 30 pages. Everything, newspapers are going out of business. The print media is very difficult. And you can't just survive on subscriptions alone, because a subscription, say $12 a year for 4 issues, that doesn't even pay for a fraction of the printing. So Bugeisha went under, unfortunately, but times have changed. It's been 23 years.
Yep.
So the way that Bugeisha is being run today is that this magazine is printed in Amazon. That's why it can be done by one guy, me. So I put together the magazine, I send it to Amazon. Whoever wants to buy it can go buy it the way you buy anything in Amazon. They print it on demand, they ship it to you, to any country in the world. I don't have to buy copies and hold them in inventory. I don't have to take orders. I don't have to do any of that, because that literally requires a completely different department and other staff to do that. So I focus on what I do well, which is the design and herding together authors and collecting the stories and putting them together. But the rest of the stuff I don't have to do. So it makes it very easy for me to do this by myself.
Well, it took 23 years to catch up with us.
Yep.
What do you envision for Bugeisha? I know that the way it's produced and mailed out is as you described, but do you have any other type of vision for Bugeisha as far as internationally?
Well, it is international right now, because through Amazon it is sold in US, Canada, all of Europe, and Japan. It is not sold in, for example, in South America. I think Brazil is maybe the only place you can get the printed copy. So they're not all over the world. But I do have a Kindle version, and that one you can get anywhere in the world. So if you have an iPad or a mobile tablet, it actually looks really good. The graphics in it are very sharp. So a lot of people are buying it on Kindle, where they're not able to get it in the printed version. So because of my time constraints, because I do other things for a living, I don't have time to go in more frequency. And this is the first year, it's a quarterly. So I'm gonna have 4 issues out this year. Perhaps in the future, it may turn into a bi-monthly. But what I do want to do as soon as possible, and I already reached out, I would like to have, let's say, in the printing industry, what is called a one-shot. It's a single issue magazine that is of a specific topic that is not part of the regular scheduled, rotation of let's say 4 issues a year, and you could stick that in any time in the year. So what I'm hoping to do is, for example, a special on Bunkai, a special on weapons, a special on maybe one style of karate. And that could be a smaller level magazine that would be of a specific topic that then we can explore to great detail that particular topic that you just can't do on a regular magazine, because the standard format of Bugeisha would be different stories. So you have a good balance and a good editorial mix. So you'll have stories about weapons and karate and different personalities and different topics. So that could be something that you may see in the near future as we move forward.
Are you looking for ideas for that?
I'm always looking for ideas.
Well, I give you a great one.
Okay.
Traditional karate for people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
That's a big topic right now. I've sat on what I've done over the past 40 years, and I've seen the incredible growth internationally of para martial arts and competition. I've been involved very heavily in it. I have one student, Kevin Rodriguez, who is on the national U.S. team. We'll be going to, what is that place he's going? He's going all over the world. Mumbai, in fact, he's going on the national team. So, but not many people write articles on it, because there's not many people well-versed in being able to write that article. So I would like to offer that as one of those inserts, and tons of history, tons of photographs, tons of videos, in fact, that I think Bugeisha could put a feather and say, well, we did that also. So
let's you and I talk about that, and we'll make that one of the one shots, because I think that's that would be a testament to the people with disabilities that are working just as hard as anybody else, but they're not necessarily covered in traditional magazines. So I think it would be a good thing for those of us who don't have any disabilities to learn about their journey, their struggles and their successes, because they're just as champions as anybody else. Because the struggle is not about whether you win or lose; it's the process and the journey and your achievements. I see some of the things that people with disabilities are able to accomplish, and even if you don't have any disabilities, just getting up there and doing something takes a lot of guts and preparation, discipline, work. So I see that as a very noble cause, and I would definitely like to pursue that. And let's put a magazine so that everybody can learn about them and how they work and how they practice and how they live, but also so that they get to have a magazine that is specifically talks about them, so that they can enjoy it and they can see that their journey and their stories have been shared.
Absolutely, agree completely on everything you just finished saying. And when you look at the traditional Budo and what it stands for, and what we preach in the dojo about how our students should have perseverance and grit, faith, and never give up, and all that stuff, the story of people with disabilities is a great, great story to tell, because it goes hand in glove with the attitude of Karate Do from Okinawa and from Japan, also from Korea and China. And I've met so many instructors that are great people in small little places all over this country and internationally, that just every day go and teach one or two kids with autism. No fanfare, no money, in fact, just a calling. It's a calling. And to tell their story would be fantastic. Would be fantastic.
I agree.
Well, thank you so much for accepting the idea. And I wanted to touch a little bit about Bugeisha. I think you mentioned to me that you're looking to get to the market in Europe with a sister publication that I believe will translate some of the articles. I know that I've done that with my article, and I think you might be in receipt of it by now. I think you're waiting for photographs. But is that going to be on an ongoing basis?
No, it's a current web magazine published by a Spanish entrepreneur over there, and it's basically online. So what we talked about when I started Bugeisha, I was introduced to him, and it's like there are some stories that have been done in Spain that have never been read by an English-speaking audience or in the USA. So I thought it would be a good collaboration, that maybe he'll send me a couple of those stories and I will send him a couple of stories that were put in Bugeisha. And then, English-speaking authors can have an audience with a Spanish-speaking world, and vice versa.
Wow,
So
what an
it's
idea.
a little bit of collaboration, because, we live in the USA. It's a big place here. There's a lot of stuff going on, but there's a lot of really good martial arts in every country in the world that we have no idea.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah, we don't have their magazines. We don't get their media. We don't get anything from there. And likewise, there's a lot of people in the Spanish-speaking world. I mean, not only Spain, but also in South America. I have a lot of friends who are martial arts in South America that don't speak English. And they say, there are books and things published in that language, but it's like they see all these books that are coming out in English, and they say, we can't get them. Even if we do,
That's
we can't
right.
read them. And
That's right.
there's always a deficit, that the great books and all the instruction that is done in English is just reaching a fraction of the world.
Yeah.
So, promoting a cross language, cross cultural exchange of articles, and that's what I want to do with Bugeisha. This is why immediately, as soon as I started looking for authors, of course, I wanted to get the best of the best in the English-speaking community. I reached out to Spain, to South America, and I have a couple of authors one from Uruguay, one from Argentina. I have a couple of guys from Spain. So I'm trying to do that. I have some people in France that I'm trying to work with, so that they can write articles, and then we translate them into English, and they can be, that can be heard and seen and so forth.
You know what? When you mention about South America, I have a large organization, and most of it is in South America. And when I publicized this wonderful collector's item here, I got a lot of people: Chile, Venezuela, Costa Rica, Trinidad, Peru, that all said, how do we get those? And of course, to send one of these right now through the mail, I found out how idealistic I was. And I said, listen, I got them. I'll mail them out all over the world. And I found out that on the other end, it is cost prohibitive to be able to send a box of 10 of these to Venezuela. It would just cost too much. But all my students know that this is waiting for them at the dojo. And I'm about to put another order in because I want them here. And this is kind of self-promotion, if I may, in December. And of course, you will be formally invited. I'll be celebrating my 50th anniversary of martial arts training and my elevation to ninth dan. And we're going to have a big convention in California, promotion, banquet, the whole bit. And supposedly a lot of people coming from those Latin countries to participate in. And I teased them all and said, you get one of these if you fly in. So I'll be putting another order in because all the ones that you did send me, they're gone. I may have one or two left because everybody wants Sokeisa and the incredible article that you helped me write a long time ago. And I will forever be grateful for that assistance. And also a lot of people, and I'll say this very proudly, this emblem that I have on my black gi is all over the world now. All over the world, Sensei. When I met you, I wasn't all over the world. And I've worked very hard, as you have, to achieve some level of success in the martial arts. And I'm very proud that every place in the world, even Germany, I have a big contingency in Germany, when they saw this patch for the first time, they said, we've never seen such a beautiful patch before. Literally. Every country I went into, and it's Kobudo, they saw the patch and went, oh my God, how did you come up with that idea? And to your credit, Sensei, a lot of people know the name Angel Lemus. They may not know you personally. Hopefully with this podcast, they'll go, he's the guy Hanshi used to talk about. So I have another connection with you and another sense of appreciation for what you did for me back based on your graphics powers that you helped me put this patch together. It's a beautiful patch. It holds very well. And so we have a lot of history, my friend. We have a lot of history.
Well, it wasn't hard to come up with that patch because you gave me such great raw materials to work with. And the meaning behind it was so wonderful that it inspired me. So it wasn't that hard to come up with it because when you have good raw materials, you always come out with a good end product.
Well, thank you, Sensei, for being so generous with that comment. Well, listen, Sensei, we have come to the end. My director is giving me the wrap-up thing. So I am proud to say that you are the first and, God willing, of many that I will do. I'm going to try to follow your formula for success. I'm going to try to have many podcasts with interesting and people that are really innovators in the traditional world to have on board. But I'm proud to say that your face will be the first one on that list of podcasts that I will have in the future. Thank you so much. I think you mentioned that you live in Hawaii. I don't think I mentioned that. In the film credits, your address and your contact information will be included in the podcast. So people that are interested in Bugeisha, interested in your form of karate, maybe even affiliations, because Shorinjiryu, I think, is probably the biggest style in the world. And you may have a lot of people, especially in South America, that don't have teachers. And being Latino helps for us anyway, to be in South America. So all that will be in a podcast. Who are you, where you come from, somewhat of your resume. And if people want to contact you, then that information will be part of it. So on behalf of my editor, Eric, and my wife, Norma, who is dying to see you, all right, we thank you for being here, and we wish you the best of health, happiness, and success in your future endeavors.
Thank you, and the same to you, and I look forward to just keep collaborating and working together. So, we'll continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Kyoshi. And good night. Os.